Okay, there she is.
All right, we're ready, Vice Chair.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're having a sidebar.
We're ready to go. We're recording. All right, well, welcome to the budget hearing for Monday, May the 8th. We've got 4 different categories today. We'll be ending about 4:30 today. First up today is the Sheriff's Office. Mr. Manager, if you want to introduce this or just invite the sheriff to come up. And Sheriff Easter, thank you for being here today.
Thank you. Good afternoon, commissioners. Appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today. We do have a PowerPoint. So the first 3 or 4 pages here is simply going over our mission, what we're tasked with by state statute, our core values, our responsibilities, the actual, what you'll be interested in starts on page 5, which is the first decision package. And so I'm going the wrong way. Hope you got everything you needed.
I know Lori usually says this, but we're on page 412 of the budget book as well. All right. That's correct. Right. Thank you.
So unfortunately, and I'll go through a series of things that have happened. My goodness, this thing's touchy. Gotta put that away. And so, as you know, I know Commissioner Howe, and I think Commissioner Dennis was with us in 17. So when we talked about the annex, our average daily population was in the 1300s. And so by what we did at the annex, by adding 180 beds, we felt that would do away with our out of county housing, because we did 3 years worth of projections, which we weren't really over that 14.7 cap during those 3 years. As soon as we did that, the population spiked. And then we had 2 or 3 years where we were up floating around 1,600 most of the time. So we had to go back to out of county housing. So the problem we have now, starting next year, is we've started receiving notice from area sheriffs, and we've really tried to use sheriffs that surround Sedgwick County because it cuts down on mileage, it cuts down on our travel time, wear and tear on vans. And when judges need them back right away, it's an hour trip, maybe an hour there, hour back, but most of the time 30, 45 minutes there and back. And so those jails have informed us that they're going to raise their rates from $35 a day per inmate to $60 a day per inmate. I know that these costs, when I first came here, so 11 years ago, the very first year, they wanted to raise them from 30 to 35. So that's the last time we've had an increase, was 10 years ago. Of course, we're obligated to house inmates. We cannot release them. We're also seeing an increase in housing our own inmates, which we're addressing in a different manner, which is all the inflation costs to commodities that we have to buy. So that's seeing an increase. So I'll go over the rest of the stuff, but the increase that we're estimating along with finance is $2.6 million. Again, our out of county housing is determined by several factors: total daily population, classification of inmates, beds for males and females that are available, staffing levels, and crime levels. So the last 2 years, however the city of Wichita goes with crime levels, that increases our jail population. You throw in there that we were short staffed, we had to close 2 pods. Because we didn't have the staffing for them anymore. So we had to send those folks out. As of right now, we have 76 openings in the jail. We have 16 in the academy that's going to graduate in 2 weeks. That's down from 127. And so we're doing better. And we are The 2 pods in the jail are now open. We also brought every out-of-county prisoner back to us. We have no out-of-county right now. And as long as our jail population stays where it's at, then we're going to be good. And so, because we're under 1,400 right now for total jail population. The problem is we're going into the summer, and what I'm getting at is I can't predict this. That's the problem we have. If I could sit and predict for you, when we tried to do that the last time with the annex and thought we gave a really good prediction that would save us money, everything else happened, and now we're housing out of county again. So as you can see in the next slide, what our average daily population looks like from 2018 to 2022. We did see a slight increase during the COVID years, working with judges, the DA's office, and those type of things. Some of your really low-level folks that were in here were released, which helped us drive that population down. But you can see in 2019, our average daily population spiked to over 1,500. And so when you see out of county, same thing happened. Our out of county was higher in 18 because of COVID. It went down. We're starting to see it go up again. Some of that was by our own creation because of shutting down 2 pods, which is about 105 inmates that we had to ship out. They're all back now, like I said. So right now, the orange line is way down because we have nobody out. Along with the blue line so far in 2023 is down in the first 5 months. When we talk about staffing levels, we took a comparison every other month from 2018 to 2022. And as you can see, we've had spikes, which is pretty normal with the sheriff's office. Generally, we've always been down 30 to 50 people. But in at the end of 2020 and the beginning of 2021, that's where we saw the huge problems with our staffing. It's starting to 2022. We still saw it. 2023 looks much better because again, we're down to 76. These years here, we're ranging between 90 and 130. From WPD Part 1 crimes, as you can see in the blue part, in 2020 and 2021, you've seen levels increase. 2022 was the same way. Right now in 2023, they're seeing a decrease. The other issue is property crimes. And a lot of property crimes, they're not held in the county jail for first-time offenses. But what we're seeing is individuals that have been in and out of the system, in and out of prison, committing more property crimes, their bonds are higher, they're staying with us, which they should be, because they're just re-victimizing people nonstop. And so property crimes, as you can see, are very high in the city of Wichita. When we talk about funds for out-of-county housing, the most we spent was in 2018, which was almost $3 million. In 19, we spent a little over 2. In 2020, again, COVID year, we spent less than 1.5. In 2022, we were at 2 million. Right now, budget-wise, we're sitting pretty good. And so the big issue right now is I can't predict 2024. And if you look at the crime stats that were there in 21 and 22, I would say without a doubt, we're going to need more money. But in 2023, we're seeing right now in the first 5 months, less violent crime, less folks in there. We were up to almost 130 murder suspects in there at one point. We're down to 79. So the court system's back and running. The other thing that I would tell you, we met with Judge Gehring, Mark Minute, and myself and a couple other people from the sheriff's office and trying to figure out, under the auspice of CJCC, where is it that we're having a problem of not moving people through the system, because the court systems are back up and running. So that's working just fine. We still have a few issues with KDOC. We still have to quarantine for 10 days prior to them taking him and those type of things because of COVID. But within usually 2 weeks, people that are going to KDOC custody are gone within 2 weeks. The other issue, which is now what we're seeing, is a big problem. If you are on probation and you get your first time probation violation, you're not going to prison anyway. But on average, it's taken a judge 19 days to see them on their first probation violation. And so trying to work out, judges are unique. They're their own individual judges. They want to keep those people in their courtrooms. We're trying to work out a deal where every week there's a judge that does nothing but PB hearings. So you're going to knock that down between 1 to 5 days instead of 19. That's going to save us, it was around $2 some million and thousands of bed days that are spent just on that one group. So we're getting ready to put that in place, which means less bed space or more bed space for us and less out of county housing. So you throw that into the mix. With what we're seeing right now, I'd like to say, oh, I think we'll be good, but I can't predict that. And so we house inmates in Butler, Cherokee, Cloud, Cali, Meade, Ottawa, Sumner, and Wilson County. Fees for those services totaled $1,993,000. If they all go to the $60 increase, which 5 of these counties have already told us they were going to, that would come up to $3,359,000. What I'm asking for is not to actually add that to my budget. What I'm asking for is that there could be maybe some contingency funds that we could go into if needed. Because I would tell you, if you give us all that money and we only spend less than what we're budgeted for right now, you're going to get it all back because we're not spending it on anything else. But I think a better avenue right now, because we just can't make any predictions, is that there's some money set aside in case we have to get into it. And we're doing our due diligence on trying to keep as many prisoners here as we can and have been for 10 years. But it gets to the point where when you have 200 and 250 inmates, we can't keep them in the gymnasiums on cots, and we can't double bunk that many of them because of the violent tendencies and those type of things. We have to ship them out of county. So that's what my proposal is on decision package 1. And I'll take any questions you might have.
Thanks, Sheriff. You and I did not talk before this, but that's exactly what I was going to propose as I was listening, is could we put this in the contingency there, and then if they don't use it, why it's a set.
Yes, we absolutely can. And we have a public safety contingency that's typically around 2.4. We can figure out what that right number is, taking this into account.
Thank you.
Just thank you, Sheriff, for the presentation. I just wanted to clarify, in case anybody's listening, that I don't know that I would agree that if someone might assume that since we created the bed space at Annex, that we somehow made decisions to incarcerate more people. It just so happened those things lined up, but we would have made the same choice to incarcerate the same people with less resources here in county. It would have cost more. But I still say we saved money. Because
we did. When you look at out of county housing costs for 180 people a day for 365 days, that's a lot of money that would have been shipped out of county.
So yeah, so I think looking backwards, we did save. I think it was $2 million a year, like we were going to save. I think we did.
We did save some money there. There's no doubt about it. And what you have to take into consideration is all the movement of those folks, because we don't really build that into our estimates of how much it really costs to house people out of county. Plus, when defense attorneys want them here, we got to make special trips on the weekends. If a judge wants them on Monday because of some hearing that's been brought up on Friday, we got to make special trips. That's overtime, those type of things. So it's much better to have them here. And I think that was the better decision. We were just hoping that we would see those kind of numbers for longer than 6 months, that we weren't sending anybody out of county.
So thank you for that clarification. Are you recommending a contingency fund of 3.4? Is that what you're saying?
No, currently our budget right now is 2.2 or 2.4. So we're asking for the additional money, which would be about $1 million, 1.2 million, I believe is what it is, to be out of contingency. And you could correct me if I'm wrong.
So I think Commissioner,
what we-
probably what we'll try to do is maybe increase that public safety contingency up to 4 million or so, just so that we can make sure we have plenty of cushion.
So if you look at page 11, what our budget is right now, we were just barely under budget, and because our budget right now is like 2.2 million for out of county housing. And so we'd be increasing it by about 1,100,000. Anything else on that one? Okay. On the second one, it's come to our attention the last few years. We were fortunate to use the ICAC grant because they couldn't go to training anywhere because of COVID. So we utilized the ICAC grant to pay for Sedgwick and Gray Key, which is the devices that we use to get into phones after we do search warrants. For those two is $140,000 a year. And luckily the grant paid for that. The grant's not going to pay for that any longer. And so we split that between the Wichita Police Department. But the way it works is because we're in charge of the money that takes place down at EMCU for all of EMCU, including ICAC, we have to pay the expense and then we're reimbursed by the city. So our actual expense is $70,000, which the city will then reimburse the additional 70,000. So the total ask here is 140,000. So we did over 2,000 phone searches last year. And at this point, because of technology, it doesn't really matter what crime it is, even misdemeanors. We're obtaining search warrants and searching phones on almost every crime that we do. So technology has exploded. So when you talk about all the cameras that we go and get information on, those phones are integral to our investigations. Because of the information, or because the phone companies every year come up with new ways that protects the safety of the consumer, Gray Key and Sedgwick then have to develop the information and then be able to have that in their package. Just like the new iPhones that just came out at the beginning of the year, there was no way to get into those. Gray Key now has developed the program that now we can get information out of the brand new iPhones, and that changes every year. Sedgwick does a lot of the Android stuff, which is like your Samsungs and those types of things. The problem with these companies are they're the only two in business. So the only two that will do it, and the only two that do it. And so it costs. And so what we're asking for is a funding request of $140,000 added to our budget, which again, every year, 70,000 of that would be reimbursed by the police department. So for our costs would be 70 grand.
But is this just for EMCU or do we use it for other cases?
So right now, the way it works is over in our investigation section, we have a phone tech. But for him to utilize the program, he has to go down to ICAC to get into the phone, and then he brings the information back and then dissects it and does what he needs to do. The good thing about these contracts, they're going to add 3 additional boxes to it. So we'll get one at the sheriff's office in our investigation section where he no longer has to go down there. The police department will get 2 because they're so much bigger than us. So they'll have one in investigations, and I can't remember where they said the other one's going to go, but we're going to get 3 boxes so that we no longer have to occupy the Gray Key and Sedgwick down at ICAC. We'll have our own in investigations.
Okay. And you think 140,000 is enough? I know when I was on EMCU, the price just about doubled every single year that I was on EMCU.
Yeah. So just like with other contracts, 140,000 gets us for at August 2023 is the time that we have to re-up the contract. The contract for 2023 is 140,000. So we're having to look at 70,000 out of our own budget somewhere to pay for that. In the future, it's 140, but they go up about 3% every year.
That's all my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. But this is a question for Lindsay. So since the city's going to reimburse us $70K we need to budget the full 140.
We do, because we'll need to spend it, but then we'll budget the revenue in, so it'll have an impact, an overall forecast and budget impact of 70,000, but we'll need to make sure we have the spending authority there.
Does our technology fund help us in this one at all?
It could, but it's not in place till July 1st.
Okay.
So it can't help us right now, but yes, in theory, it could help us down the road.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheriff.
That's all I have for you today.
That's the end of the deal.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. That was pretty quick, actually. My goodness.
Question.
Good presentation.
Well, while the sheriff's here, hold on, while you're here. One of the things we want to talk about, and going back to his first decision package, we want to redo CJCC to some degree, and sheriff's an integral part of that. You want to kind of talk about that, Sheriff, while we're waiting on Mark?
Actually, yeah, I have another question on that as well. Go ahead.
And Rusty can,
Yep.
you want to chime in here, because I know that it's a big piece of what Rusty does. So, over time here, when CJCC was first formed, they did a great job. There was a lot of things that they changed within the court systems, changed within our jailing services, within the county. And pretty much it ran out of ideas. There wasn't anything new cutting edge that we could do. So those meetings consist of a lot less people coming, most of the time not having a quorum. And secondly, we just discuss our jail numbers and that's it. And so what we're looking at is other ways, just like what I was talking about with Rusty's been there too for the meetings with Judge Gehring and Mark Bennett, other ways that we need to take a look at what can actually affect from a criminal justice standpoint, the people in our jails and not compromise public safety. And so that's really the direction we're going to start moving. And there's been some other ideas, and Rusty, you can cover that if you would like.
So what I would say to that is CJCC is obviously stagnated. Back in 2017, there's documentation where there was this very discussion started in 2017 that CJCC seemed to have run its course and maybe it was time to go a different direction, but then it's just kind of continued. What we find, and the sheriff, I think, agrees, is that a lot of that work is still happening. Back in 2012, 13, there was a resolution that created some committees within CJCC, and they worked on technology and they worked on data, trying to find data points that would help give direction on what services would provide relief for the jail through, evidence-based and alternatives to incarceration to relieve the jail population. That was after the jail had been expanded back in the early 2000s. Where we are today is a lot of that work is still occurring, but it's rather than doing it through those committees, people on the CJCC are doing those in coalitions and task force and legislative committees. The DA works in Topeka a lot. He's been on legislative committees that have helped to work toward moving legislation toward alternatives to incarceration. So a lot of that work is still occurring. And we compiled a lot of the information about what has happened over the past 10 years within the justice system within Sedgwick County, and then also within CJCC, because it hasn't really, over the past 10 years, there hasn't been a lot of documentation of what has happened. But when you look through that documentation, you can see that progress continued. It just wasn't really accumulated and reported out on. And it began to be done in pockets, ComCare working on stuff, the DA working on stuff, the sheriff through the Sheriff's Association and through the legislature working on issues. And I think what we're trying to do is make that a smaller group of people focused on the issues that exist today: mental health, substance use, looking at whether we need to expand on the programs that are already in place, increase the capacity on some of those, so that some of the community corrections programming, should we increase the capacity there to relieve space in the jail? And then they're looking at processes within the system, within the district court, within the DA's office. Are there processes that can be improved and made more efficient to move people through the system quicker? And that's kind of the conversations that have been occurring over the past couple of months, or at least the past several weeks, is what are the points in the system that are causing people to stay in jail longer than they probably have to or need to. So that's what we're trying to focus on. And I think we have system partners out there, people in the community that are partners, the Crime Commission and others who are involved with some of these issues. So if we reimagine what the makeup of the body should be, refocus the work, and bring in a handful of those partners who are doing some of that work with us, that's what we're trying to accomplish. So
If I could add one thing to that, we had talked about, I think ever since I became sheriff, Veterans Court. And so that had been talked about since 2013. But what actually caused it was an opportunity that you guys had, but that was not through CJCC. That was through the DA's office, the courts, the court clerk, the sheriff's office that made that happen. And so it wasn't a CJCC actual event that caused that to happen. And that's more what we're seeing now.
But in that same vein, as we talk about the psychiatric hospital that should be coming, is now the time to have the conversation about a mental health court? Should we initiate that? Is now the time while we're starting this? These are the conversations. I mean, should we press our foot down and see if we can have this conversation escalated?
I know that there's an interest in exploring that further. I think that both the court and the community corrections department want to get the Veterans Court off the ground and kind of see how that's running. I think, at least from Steve's side, I think they're interested in the mental health court. They'd like to get about a year under their belt with Veterans Court, make sure that the training is done, that the judge and the prosecutor and the ISOs and the VA, that all those pieces are working like they should. Drug court has had some hiccups over the past couple of years, so they're trying to get that back on track. They'd like to have those two running pretty smoothly, but maybe within the next 12 months or so, we start to look at what a mental health court would look like. And I don't know that there's any funding readily available. We would need to look for a funding source like we did for the Veterans Court. Otherwise, a lot of that's going to be GF dollars that would, a lot of the structure is going to be in place, but depending on how many bodies they're going to utilize to run that program. And I think Jones people, ComCare, would be involved with that, just like they are drug court. And at some point, she said the other day, they're going to end up involved in Veterans Court if the population expands beyond what the initial. So there may be a few additions of FTEs if we throw in a mental health court. So I think within the next 12 months, they'll probably be interested in talking about that more. But I think right now they're focused on getting Veterans Court up in the last.
In the long run, a mental health court would serve this community, and what you're discussing, it would certainly serve as well. Would you agree?
Yeah, and I can give you an example just this weekend, and it's unique, but we have these happen. Where an individual is arrested for a misdemeanor crime by the city of Wichita. He's brought in to the jail. He assaults 3 deputies in the jail. The misdemeanor crime is ORable, which means he's going to be in and out in an hour. He's got some serious mental health issues. The batteries on our deputies, because he has mental health issues, they're going to be LOP'd by the DA within a few hours because they can't charge them because of their mental health issues. They do the screening. ComCare says they need to go to St. Joe to be held till Osawatomie, and he breaks the nose of a mental health worker inside St. Joe, and she's not back to work yet. So we had a big phone call this morning. We have got to figure out, because by law, I can't hold them. That's right. And so we're going to try to do a workaround where I met with Mark this morning on those cases that involve our people, because they're charging district, or they'll be going through district court, that they give us the 72 hours to try to charge them. All that does is give us time to hold them, but hopefully St. Joe can get them off to Osawatomie in 3 days so that their staff is not being assaulted, because their assaults on their staff are picking up and they're losing people over it. And so, but they're stuck because I asked them, can't you force medicate? Well, they have rights. So they asked us, why can't you have hold them? Because they have rights. And so we're going to have to figure out something there already. And a mental health court, I think, could help with that, because they could be held in our custody until they are seen, which can get us around the state law that basically says if they're not held for any criminal action, I can't hold them.
I one sidebar on that. I talked to St. Joe the other day, San Antonio School. They have 1.5 assaults in their staff every day in math. So just a piece of that.
And it's all in their ER.
Yeah.
With the mental health patients that are waiting in the ER for days or up in their bed space.
And detention deputies and cops, okay, with nurses and staff,
Doctors.
they'll leave. They are having a hard time with staffing, a harder time even than we are in jail. The other thing I'd say is, I think I think why I wanted to talk about CJCC. The discussion of that ought to be happening now, because you can't turn this on a dime. It takes planning, it takes strategy. And I don't think it's too early to talk about that. I agree with Rusty and I hear what they're saying. They want to stand up veterans court, but realistically, I don't think we're talking about standing up a mental health court. And even one past that, I'd like CJCC, the right people at the right table, to talk about some alternative door on the front end to where even maybe there's possibilities where they won't even see the inside of a jail if the charges are such a way that the sheriff and the DA and the judges can all agree on. I think we look at even a door that avoids jail, period. That's a heavy duty discussion that has to be had, a lot of partners, but I don't think it's too early to talk about that. And one of the things you'll hear, and I don't know, Rusty, I think we're after a position that will help us to is it under your budget, Rusty, or where it would actually be an analyst type of position that will help and support this. I don't think it's too early to retool CJCC, repeal rules that were made back in the early 2000s and recreate this. I don't think it's too early to talk about that, Commissioner.
But back to the mental health court, 3 years ago, when we started talking about veterans court, we were actually talking about two courts at the exact same time. We talk about a veterans court and a mental health court. But again, the resources. So when we started talking about those, that requires our corrections office to add staff. It requires judges. It requires the sheriff's department. It requires a lot of people. We didn't have the staff in order to be able to support two brand new ones. So we look towards the veterans court first, and not putting mental health on back burner, but remember, we got to get one step at a time, and that's where we're at today. So it's not something that we didn't consider.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, sure.
Thank you.
Now the chairman's here.
Okay. Sure. I'm sorry. I'm a real.
We'll get you agree.
Take it. Okay.
It was me, just giving what he wants.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
It is a big smile. I got my
We
big
still
smile. That's
recording?
it.
Are we still recording? Okay, if we're ready, I guess. Commissioner Lopez, we're 5 minutes early, but if you're ready.
Yep,
Okay.
all right. Yep, no problem.
Okay, all right. Mark, welcome to the meeting.
Thanks for having me. All right, well, sounds like the sheriff set the bar.
Lorian, hold on just a minute.
Sorry, page 432.
The sheriff set the bar fairly high in terms of going through this quickly, so I won't waste your time. In and out quick. District Attorney's Office, most of this is old hat, but just give you a sense of the layout, the structure of the office. Where the FTEs are, the issues we're having is, these have been discussed in the past. It's really our criminal division, where we still, need to get up to speed. Lost a couple of folks recently, one to the feds. She's going to go be a prosecutor at the U.S. Attorney's Office, which, it's a good problem to have, that you have people who are so highly thought of that the next level wants them, but she needs to be replaced. And then lost another attorney to the private sector.
I need to start over? Oh, sorry. Now I saw the light is green, just not as green as it is now. All right, sorry. I should know. At any rate, lost a couple folks, but things are improving. The salary increases last year. And I think the overall trend here is we're keeping our requests very modest this year. Really, it's only just an ask you to vote on something more than even an increase in budget. But we're doing this, trying to live within our means so that we can put the county in the best position to continue on in its trajectory toward maintaining recruitment and retention through increased salary overall for the entire organization. Obviously, my office benefits from that when you're able to do that. So mission, you know what our mission is. Enforce the laws of the state and do so in a professional and ethical manner. Office overview. Again, anybody has any questions, I'll stop here, but you've heard me do this now for, I think this is year 11 of me standing before you folks and giving you the speech. So you know all the areas that we work in. I will make one. This is as good a time as any. I'll give you one additional piece of information I think you know about, but just in case you don't. You've known, I explained over the last several years that during the course of the pandemic with the tightening of access to the courts, and the other major consequence was the reduced number of defense attorneys who were practicing in Wichita and Sedgwick County, and frankly, in the region, made it difficult. So we were trying to be very diplomatic and very specific about where we spent our energy. And so violent crime, sex crimes, repeat offenders is where we put all of our bandwidth. And so property crimes and possession level drug crimes, not sales and distribution, but possession level, we held off filing those charges. Over the course of that first year, end of 2020, we did a project with the courts where they hired 2 lawyers on a one-time basis. We spent about 3 weeks bringing people in and really giving some very good deals to these folks, trying to get them through the system, get them into treatment, et cetera. That was not a process that we could just keep repeating over and over again. But over the since last fall, Bennett was in negotiations with courts and with BIDS, the Board of Indigent Defense Services for the state. And they hired a firm here in town of private defense attorneys. The Board of Indigent Defense did. So the state money is paying for one group of attorneys. I think there's 4, maybe 5 of them in that firm. And so that was their commitment. My commitment was to give lawyers to this project, and then this court's committed a judge to do it. They're doing it in the basement now, in the old cafeteria, which you probably still smell the deep fryer back in there. But we are bringing people through there. We call it the resolution docket. My office is absorbing all of the upfront effort associated with that. We're getting all the discovery up front. We're doing all this so that by the time the defense attorney is appointed, the whole case is ready to go and they can have a worthwhile conversation with their clients. But having one firm whose job it is to do this, one judge whose job it is to do this, and 2 lawyers in my office whose job it is to do this, in the first 7 weeks, we resolved 122 felony cases, which puts us on a pace realistically to hit somewhere between 500 and 700 cases resolved in 1 year. The incentive is that if they get the things done they're supposed to, restitution paid, get into drug treatment, et cetera, we'll let them off probation a little early. That has nothing to do with budget, but it does speak to, as you're thinking about how you spend your money, how your money's being spent, are we just doing the same old, beating our head against the same wall? Or are we trying to come up with new ways and more efficient ways to do things? And the answer is collectively, the system is working to do this. I will say it's the takeaway is that when you make it someone's job, don't just ask someone who's already doing a million other things to see if they can make time for this. But if you make it someone's job, it happens. So in the grand scheme of things, that is one, I think, improvement that the community is benefiting from. It's getting people incentivizing them getting into treatment that much sooner instead of in 9 months when your case finally comes to fruition. Now let's finally get you into treatment. Let's do it up front. And it seems to be benefiting people. So there you go. Strategic goals: reduce the number of criminal cases awaiting filing and or processing. Well, that was one example of how we're trying to address goal number 1. Goal number 2 is dispose of more criminal cases that are charged on an annual basis. The idea is don't have a backlog working down, so they're moving through the system as fast as we're filing them. Again, that project I just described speaks to and attends to that goal as well. Statistics: I can answer any questions you want, but they're just sort of an overview of the last several years. Obviously, 21, 22 were fewer number of overall cases filed. Some of that has to do with the dynamic I just described a moment ago, which is we were not filing as many non-person and drug crimes as we had in the past. We're now finding new ways to file them in an expedited manner. But again, one other thing I guess I should say, it's not part of my budget, but again, if you're asking how is our money being spent, the care and treatment line If you backed up to 2012, you'd see that the numbers were pushing 900. So at 687, 500, 449, all the way down to 346. Those are the care and treatment cases, chapter 59. These are the folks who are a danger to themselves or others who have to be taken off the streets by law enforcement, sent to Osawatomie State Hospital. It's all speaking to this overall mental health agenda that the county's made clear is something that's very concerned about. The reason it is trending downward, I can attribute this to no other reason, but the reason it's trending downward is because the money this body spent on the crisis center at ComCare. There's nothing to do with me. I'm not getting anything for saying this, but this is part of the overall agenda I think you need to be aware of. Your money has been spent on that crisis center. Without it, I have no doubt, I don't think it's hyperbolic at all to say we'd be hovering over 1,000 cases instead of 346. And we would be at beyond a crisis level. There's no way, there is no capacity for that in Sedgwick County. So just put in a plug for the money that's been well spent at ComCare and the positive impact it's had on the criminal justice system because of that. Sure.
Mike, there's another line item on here that I think deserves some sort of conversation, that the Saint cases, child in need of care, 669, and it's increasing. I'll go back to the conversation we had with Odyssey, not to rip off a Band-Aid.
Good. Let's talk about that. All right.
No, but honestly, that is so concerning to me on so many levels. What's driving that is should we be more concerned than what we are with what we're moving into with Odyssey? Not just Saint cases, but that just, man, that gives me so much heartburn.
Sure. I will say if you back up to 2019, even before the pandemic, as it was at 650, it sort of fluctuates. There's some better years and some worse years. And if at some point, if you'd like, I can come over here and bring some of my staff to give you more insight and give you a 10 or 15 or 20 year look so that you have more than just I won't call it a snapshot, but 5 years, it was getting close to maybe seeing trends, but it kind of up and down. But there are any number of things that impact this. I've heard everything from, first of all, the pandemic, the number of kids who are not in their normal going to school during the day. There were not, that schools are for education, but there's also an element of sort of respite care. I mean, the parents get a break from the kids during the day when they're home all day long with no break. There was, arguably maybe some more abuse that was taking place. Financial situation. What are the stressors on any family? Financial is probably the most impactful, in any family across any socioeconomic background. And so again, during the pandemic, we saw more of that. So, yes, there are any number of factors that we need to speak to. How does that impact a budget conversation for the county? A little more complicated. Yes. We have the staff to attend to these cases. We have good folks down there who are, doing good work. I am hopeful that the Odyssey transition will have a very small impact on the operations with respect to sync. I will say early on that was not the case, but there have been quality conversations over the last several years that have I think that have impacted that in a positive way. So, but again, after like the conversation a week and a half ago, give me another month. Let me have another month under my belt talking to those folks. I'm driving to the Supreme Court on Wednesday this week to sit down with the Supreme Court, discuss Odyssey. So foot's on the gas right now. And I'll inform you in real time.
Likewise, can you talk about the juvenile cases reviewed and declined? What's that mean?
So we've got juvenile cases filed. That speaks for itself. Those are some of the cases that were filed filed as a formal complaint, a JO case, right into court, appointed an attorney, et cetera. Juvenile cases that we reviewed and declined, that gives you a number of cases that were reviewed formally by our office and the charges were not filed. There's you can see the number trending up. If you went back to 2016 when 367 was in place, you'd see some more. I think you'd see an upward trend that would date back to that.
So the decline number's gone up and the cases filed has gone down.
Correct. Yeah. A lot of it has to do with that. At some point you have to ask yourself, by filing this charge, am I doing more harm than good on a case where I can only hold somebody for 45 days total? I mean, all the things we've talked about ad nauseum with respect to 367. Also looking for other resources in the community. We have the IIP that we refer cases over to with community corrections, the intermediate intervention programs. And so trying other things as well before we pull that trigger.
So currently, if the kids are declined, do they still get an assessment and still get programming opportunities, or is that something they only get if they're not?
Depends on the way they came into the system. If they went in through, it's like JIAC, there'll be an assessment of some, they'll assess them in that moment. We do have cases that are declined. We refer them back immediately but refer them back to corrections. And so they can offer them the IIP, which is part of 367 that was contemplated. They want us to do that. I'll defer to Steve. I don't want to steal his thunder or try to refer to his statistics, but they can speak to you about the success rate of that. We've had recent conversations where we're trying to streamline that process so they can get to these kids that much sooner and offer them. At the end of the day, though, I hate to say this out loud because I don't know how many people pay attention to these sort of wonkish discussions, but that's the downside with an IIP. If this kid doesn't want to be a part of it, they don't avail themselves of that opportunity. There's no consequence because there's no court involvement. So
Thank you for the answers.
again, more crime trends. You can see the big picture here. One of the things that if the homicide rate goes down to back to pre-pandemic levels, that will make a huge difference for us. It's only 60, some cases a year as opposed to 30 cases a year. But the difference in having those extra 30 cases with co-defendants, sometimes it's 40 or 50 extra cases, has a huge impact on the way we do business in the office. There's only so many people who are trained to do those kind of cases. And when one lawyer has 20 or 30 homicides on top of their regular course of work, that's a lot for them to do. So that's a trend we're hoping to see it go in the right direction. Another way of showing the same things, graphs to show the property crime rates. Property crimes, I will say, is the one area that's been not just locally, but nationally going in the right direction for some time. There are anecdotal exceptions, catalytic converters, metal theft, things like that. But big picture property crimes in Sedgwick County are trending similar with the national average going down. Violent crime, you saw big spikes in 2020 and then actually in 2021 in terms of the homicides. But this year thus far, knock wood, they're going in the right direction. So there you see the homicide, violent deaths charged. Number of victims, I did point out like 64 charged with 55 victims. That's how many co-defendants there were. Each one of those, even if it's 2 or 3 guys on one case, each one gets a separate trial. It's another week of trial that we have to find time to do. So challenges, property crimes have been trending down. Violent offenses, especially homicides, went up, generally speaking. Again, thus far in the first quarter of calendar 2023, we're in better shape than we have been during, from 2020 through last year. So we're hoping that this is a reflection of trending back toward the pre-pandemic normal. But and if it is, that will benefit us and take the pressure off significantly. The point, what's written here is fairly common sense. It takes somebody with a lot more experience to try a homicide case than it does to try a petty theft or a speeding ticket. So when you've got experienced lawyers who are also the ones who the younger people go to for asking advice and asking for experience, things like that, who are covering 9, 10, 15, 20. One of them right now has 28 homicides and she has a full caseload. You're asking a lot. We are asking a lot of these folks. Staffing challenges, we've improved over the past year, but again, it's still an issue. Entry level positions continues to be a challenge. Finding experienced criminal attorneys is particularly difficult. They're either former prosecutors who went into the private practice and trying to lure them back, or maybe they're public defenders or just people who've been into criminal defense their entire career, trying to get them to come over to the prosecution side. It's not just a matter of salary, but it's also a matter of how to say this, control over their day. And you work for yourself and you're hanging your own shingle and you are, your own law firm. You get to choose how you spend your day. And if you work for me, show up, I'll give you a docket every day. And it's a 9 to 5 job, and or maybe 8 to 6. And most of us don't leave the office till 6:30 every night. And that's come work for me, make less money, work hard, work more hours is a tough sell. So, but at the same time, it makes it an easier conversation, given the salaries that you all approved last year. So I do thank you for that. And we're working within what we've got to work with. So. So Odyssey, I'm not sure what else I can say that wasn't, laid out a week ago Friday. I have concerns. I also have assurances. Trust but verify, move forward in good faith, but you will hear from me by June, and you will hear from me throughout June and July on a regular basis as to where we are. I won't put you in a position where at the 11th hour come in and go, the sky is falling, drop everything, I also have assurances from both county IT and from OJA that while I don't have the resources, I only have so many people, but the folks who are the partners have all indicated they'll give us everything that they can to make this a success. So hope springs eternal, and I expect it to, it's got to work. I don't know what else to say. It's got to work. So there may be some, I mentioned this to Tom earlier, and we're already starting to assess internally. There may be some reclassifications for some folks, because even if it all goes swimmingly, there may be some shifts in job responsibilities and people, what they do on a daily basis. We may have to reclassify a few folks internally, but nothing that frankly, I don't think anything that's going to be significant enough that I couldn't absorb it through salary savings. So, but cards on the table, tell you what all the plates we're spinning right now. So I think that covers about everything with Odyssey. Again, unless somebody wants to do a deep dive again for another hour on Odyssey, I'm getting tired of the phrase. So ARPA, we've talked at length each year that since we've had ARPA, as it begins to sunset, how do we want to address those positions? I know we're not making any moves right now, but people who have been hired using ARPA money, we're going to look for opportunities over the next year to transition them back to the permanent staffing table. But frankly, it's a balance. We're trying to use that money as long as we can use it for as much effect, but we also don't want to, when the music stops, have somebody who's not on the staffing table that we've come to rely on. So we're going to try to be good stewards of that ARPA money and the county money, and work with Lindsay and her folks and everybody in the county to figure out the right time to make those decisions. So new case management system, you all know that we're going from our Justware, which is going to no longer be supported, to a new case management system. We expect to have some decisions from the decision package, I think, this summer. And so again, I think that was pretty well covered in the was addressed last week ago, Friday, during that discussion on the new RMS, but it's going to impact my operations. Hopefully in a positive, I actually should say in a positive way. It's time for a new RMS. We haven't had one in a long time. And I think it's fair to say the new ones that are available for DA's offices are have really improved the product. If only somebody would come up with a turnkey for an entire justice system, we'd all be in great shape. Budget request, again, like I said, to start the whole thing off, I'm trying to keep this very modest. In fact, my overall is a negative 3.29 overall budget impact. So we're really trying to live within our means here. One thing I'm going to ask, the one decision package as it's referred to, is this. It's $1,000. I don't expect you to, I think we can take care of that out of, I think we decided commodities is where it would come out of, but maybe it's contractuals at any rate. So currently, and for as long as I can remember, we've paid $16 per day, which is significantly below the per diem for witnesses and folks, the federal system, which is $64 per day. We're asking, I think we could probably just do it, but in speaking with Lindsay and folks, we thought it was better to bring it to you all, ask for approval for the increase to 32 next year and 48 the year after that. Again, the budget impact overall is $1,000 is what we estimate. So this isn't going to break the bank, but it does make it easier on folks who we issue a subpoena for, and they have to drive in from Wellington or Ponca City or wherever, spend the day at the courthouse. Helps pay for their lunch and some mileage and that sort of thing. So It's minor. It was almost not worth the ask, but thought it's better to put it on the table so you all can see it, make a decision, rather than just make a decision on my own without going through you all. There's another way of showing the same thing. So big picture, a lot on the table. We're working, trying to maintain the people we've got, get new recruits in, pay them all enough to make them want to stay. But my overall budget request is what it is so that we can, so I put you all and help put you all in the best position possible to help the county countywide. If I get everything I want and you can't increase salaries or keep us at the pace that we're at now, that we've earned that we got to last year, or if Jeff can't keep his, the detention deputies, the sheriff can't keep enough detention deputies, or corrections can't, or ComCare, we all have to work together. And so, high tides raise all boats, and that's the philosophy we've approached this budget season with. So, any questions?
Mark, I got can we talk about Odyssey?
Yeah,
No, I'm just kidding. On the, your comment about property crime. And this may be based on that meeting we had when it was very revealing on the statistics and what I'm getting at is just recently, the last week or two, couple of discussions and a small handful of discussions about the shoplifting world.
Sure.
Does the shoplifting fall into property crime?
It does, and I'm speaking in very general terms. So
Yeah.
property crime include everything from people who break into garages and cars to, it's every single thing that doesn't involve injury to a person. Within that overarching umbrella, though, there are pockets like retail crime that are seeing very recent spikes that need to be addressed. And so it's, macro, micro.
So is it up to the owner and the company to file charges? Or
Call the police, police come in, like anything, call the police show up, investigate the crime, and then bring it to us.
Okay.
If people are not willing to cooperate, that does impact and does influence our charging decision, but it is not dispositive.
Right.
If it was, DV cases would get dismissed on the regular because put enough pressure on the victim, they say I won't cooperate, and then, well, I guess we have to dismiss. That's not how it works. But I do have to know about it to charge it. So they have to notify law enforcement. Law enforcement has to investigate and bring the case to us.
Well, there was two owners of more specialty shops or unique shops that told me they keep their doors locked and only unlock it when it's a client or a customer that they know or can come in. I just that was kind of alarming, and based on what we had talked about before.
Yeah.
So our statement would be they need to feel free to, you got to call the police and
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well,
All right.
and there's an intersection between the city and the county here. City, most of the law enforcement we're talking about here is going to be city Wichita Police Department. But all the felony level crimes flow through my office. The misdemeanors would flow through the city court. But let's just say this. I know I'm not speaking out of turn here when I say Chief Sullivan, Sheriff Easter, Chief Lee, all the small town chiefs, anybody who's in a command staff level of law enforcement in this community is certainly aware of this issue. And the last thing they want to do is be known as the retail crime, retail theft capital of the Midwest. So attention is being paid, and when cases are brought over, we're going to file them and bring them through the system. The resolution docket is for the low hanging fruit, trying to get people through the system. But if there's organized crime that's taking place, that's the resolution docket frees us up to spend the bandwidth and spend the time on the ones who can make more of a system-wide impact.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Along with property crimes, I just saw on the news, I think it was yesterday, that the legislature passed a bill that now the Attorney General is going to start prosecuting these big box store crimes, especially when they go across county lines and so forth. Is that going to reduce any of your?
If it's the bill I'm thinking of, I think what they've tried to do, and I don't know where it's at. They may have. I'll have to follow up with you on that. See if it got signed by the governor. The as I understood the goal of that legislation, it was to have cross jurisdictional issues. So I go to the Walmart in Butler County in El Dorado. I steal a truckload of stuff out of there. I drive south to Wellington into Sumner County, hit that Walmart, run over to Ark City, hit that Walmart, and come back to South Wichita, hit that Walmart. Who's got jurisdiction? As the law stands now, I do in South Wichita, Darren Devaney does in Butler County, and so on. To having, because there's a venue issue. There's a way, I don't want to get in the weeds, but there's a way that one of us could do it. But I think the idea is to make it simpler to have the AG then be able to step in and have multi-jurisdictional jurisdiction over a multi-venue issue. But I haven't seen the final product there. Big picture, we're still going to prosecute the cases. And until, if the AG wants to come in and swoop in and say, I'll take this one big crime ring, that'd be great. But until or unless that happens, it's still going to fall on our shoulders, and we're going to continue to handle those cases.
Well, they were interviewing Kobach, and he said he's going to take on these things, and there's hundreds of billions of dollars counted Kansas wide. So he was willing to take that on. I just know.
Yeah, well, assuming we're on the same sheet of music, I think that's what was being discussed. We'll see.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I got two quick questions. Speaking of legislation, I heard some of the debate this year on speedy trial. Did they end up passing another extension of speedy trial?
They did, rather than change the statute substantively, they just passed it again until March 1st of next year. And at which point,
Is this like the last time they can do this?
all I mean, bottom line, statutory speedy trials is construction of the state statutes, state legislature. They could do away with it. I mean, it has no impact on constitutional speedy trial. The state legislature has no power to impact your constitutional right to speedy trial at all. It's simply a statutory construction. So they could do it more. They could do it. I don't think they're going to do it again, but I think this is a function of some of the courts. Sedgwick County didn't really shut down. We did, but not compared to others. St. John's County shut down 15 months. So this was a concession to places where they literally were not able to get much work done.
I think there were places in the state without that legislation, they would have had to let people.
I think that's a fair assessment.
So with that in mind, since again, I think Sedgwick County did it better. Can you quantify in some way, what's our status in terms of our backlog due to the COVID pandemic?
Sure. So cases filed. So start line in this as a line in the sand, March 2020. That's when things shut down. So we have gone back as of, and I will send you all when I get back to the office, the numbers that I have as of end of February, 1st of March. I don't think we've done it again in the last 30 days, but I can tell you where we were then. Cases filed before. So let's see, 2020 cases on file in 2020 were 98.9, I think, or 99.8. I'll get them wrong, but nearly 99% of our cases are in judgment, meaning they are complete. You have to account for the fact that some cases with a 2020 case number, we filed it in 2020. It may have taken a year or two to get the person picked up on a warrant, something like that. That may have been off docket for competency evaluation. There may have been some reason why the case was delayed in getting done. But 99% of the cases filed during the pandemic are now in judgment. So the next year, I believe it was 92% for cases filed in 21, and then 22 just cases filed last calendar year. We were at I think we're pushing 80% of those cases being resolved. To give you a comparison, in 2018, I know that the cases set for awaiting trial, they're on the jury trial calendar. I mean, they hadn't been tried yet. We had anywhere from 575 to 700 cases at any given time. We hope we always try to keep it around 600, because that just meant the cases that just came in last week, cases have been on for a year. That's about a normal, hopefully that's a normal number for Sedgwick County. When we did the numbers in February, and by the way, I'm talking pre-pandemic, when we did the numbers in February, we were at 775 cases, I believe it was, or 778, something like that. There were pending cases that had a case number that predated 2023. So from 2014 to 20, whatever it may have been, any criminal case number on file, we had about 150 more than we might have at a pre-pandemic level. That is a testament to how much work the prosecutors and defense attorneys and judges in this jurisdiction did. It's also, frankly, a function of the fact that we held back inundating the system with drug crimes and property crimes, et cetera. We're attending to that now. But we prioritized the worst of the worst crimes during that pandemic, which is why I think we've been able to have the kind of success we've had in resolving those cases. So, but I'll get you hard numbers, and frankly, you raised the question, I'll get you, well, John will update those numbers. So I can give you something that's effective end of April, probably.
It'd be really great. And I think I'm not the only one that's interested in that. I'm sure the community as a whole is interested in that topic. And I like to brag on Sedgwick County a little bit. So I think it's great to poke Johnson County just a little bit if I can. One final thing. I haven't been in the courthouse in a while. I know. Isn't that fun? I haven't been in the courthouse.
Hi to Steve Howe for a while. How you doing, Steve?
Yeah. But I know that the courts are getting a lot of new spaces over there. But what's your space situation? You know, when you come to us in the past, we've talked about putting people in closets and all kinds of stuff. What's your status of space today?
We're doing much better with the plan, obviously, to expand in the second and third floor. We've already moved quite a bit of staff over the last 3 years into the west end of both the second and third floor currently, which has helped us out immensely. We've not done any capital improvements to my current position because I thought it was a waste of money to throw good money after bad, redoing carpets and things on the place we're going to leave, because I don't know what the new use for that area is going to be specifically. But no, in terms of just space, we're doing much better than we were because of the county commission opening up second and third floor to us.
You had to hire a bunch of new people because of all the video evidence work that you've had to do. And I mean,
it's
a lot of reasons why we've had to add space. And so your folks have places to operate now that make sense.
When I started in the office in the late 90s, discovery was something we handled ourselves as lawyers. I'd make copies of my reports for the public defender, give them to him. It was not a lot of paper. Then in the early 2000s, we went to having one full-time. We kind of the record staff then took it over, and then finally we had to hire a person to do discovery. That was her job. Today we have 5 or 6 people back there, an entire unit devoted to it. The amount of, again, I'll send you the updates on the terabytes of information we process in the course of a year. It's staggering. That's one area that I don't think will ever go down. You're always going to have a human being in the job, whose job it is to take something from the cops and give it to the defense just to make sure it got done up to our constitutional standards.
I think overall it's been a really positive presentation today. Thank you for your work here.
Yeah.
Well, Mark, thanks again. Thanks for your leadership as well. Whenever you have an item that needs state attention, and you lean on us or inform us that we can help support. So it's been a good relationship. So
I appreciate that.
Thank you
very much.
Anybody else?
Okay. Thanks, folks.
Okay.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Commissioners, our next presentation will be the district court. Will be on page 450 of your binders.
Okay. You ready? You a little early. Is that all right? Hey, good afternoon, Judge.
Good afternoon.
How's everything?
Everything's just fine.
Good.
Thank you all for your time this afternoon. Joni will give the more detailed presentation of the budget. I'm here to give you sort of the 50,000-foot view of the two decision items in our packet.
Okay.
As you know, the State Board of Indigent Defense Services, they reimburse the court-appointed attorneys. These are for the felony cases at $120 an hour. Right now, Sedgwick County reimburses the local attorneys that handle misdemeanors, for which the county is responsible for those fees at the rate of $85 an hour. So when you have a discrepancy of about $35 an hour, it's difficult to get people interested to do court-appointed work at the county level. We're proposing to raise that rate to $100 an hour. It's still a difference of $20, but it's not as bad as $35. And we think that it'll make it easier for us to not only attract new people onto the list, but to maintain those that are on the list, give them a reason to stay. The second part of the decision package, it has to do with equipment that's needed, technology upgrades in the clerk's office in anticipation to the move to the Odyssey system. Again, Joni can get into more details, but we have obsolete equipment that isn't going to work with Odyssey. And so we're contemplating the need for upgraded tech and scanners and the like to allow us to run smooth on Odyssey when it comes in August 7th. I'm happy to provide any other overview of court operations that you like. Otherwise, I'll let Joni take it from here on the detailed look at the budget request.
Okay, any questions so far?
Commissioners, Joni Wilson, Court Administrator for the 18th Judicial District. We have a short slide show to go through. I'm happy to answer questions as we go along or at the end. One of the first slides shows our organizational chart and the employees that are covered under our budget. The only court or the county funded positions are the court trustee positions, and they are solely funded through fees that they get through enforcement of child support cases. The county funds one position, and that is the lady that runs our Kids First program, which is statutorily required classes for individuals going through divorces with children. All the other positions are funded through the state. Our first strategic goal is to provide excellent customer service. That's providing access to the courts, exemplify fairness, strive for timely disposition of cases, maintain integrity of case records, collect monetary penalties and judgment, and aim for the effective use of jurors and ensure the enforcement of court orders. Strategic goal number 2 is Odyssey, which we've talked a lot about these past few months. We want to ensure that we are ready and able to continue excellent service to the public and justice partners with the transition to the new statewide case management system, which is slated to go live August the 7th. Our third strategic goal is case flow, to optimize the use of the individual calendaring system for assigning and processing cases. The fourth is to reduce the backlog, and we will continue to work with our justice system partners to address backlog issues created by court closure and reduced operating capacity due to COVID-19. And strategic goal number 5 is to refurbish and maintain court space, remediation of damaged woodwork in courtrooms, and upkeep of court offices, libraries, conference rooms, and jury deliberation rooms. So over the next 5 years, we face challenges and opportunities. We have been provided 3 new judicial positions, 2 district court judges and 1 magistrate judge, which created the need for courtrooms and chamber space in the main courthouse. The estimated completion date of that is December of 2023. We will continue to collaborate with the DA, Sheriff, Wichita Police Department to implement new statewide case management system, now estimated to go live in August of 2023. Maintain efforts to address backlog of cases that accumulated as a result of the COVID pandemic. Launch and operate a meaningful veterans treatment court, which is estimated to start in the summer of 2023. explore additional specialty courts, and refurbish and maintain court space. This is a summary of all funds. As you can see, we have personnel, contractual, debt service, commodities, capital improvements, for a total of 5.147,812,000 million, sorry, $5,147,812, which shows a decrease of 1.1%. And I believe we talked about this at the last presentation, that that's actually not exactly an accurate number, because we did utilize ARPA funding last year to pay for jury fees and attorney fees in appropriate cases that were backlogged due to COVID. So we're actually a greater reduction. This slide shows the 2022 actual expenditures. Everything on this chart, except for the 18.64%, is statutorily required. So everything we do outside of what's statutorily required is covered in that 18.64%, which is a pretty small piece of that pie. That just kind of breaks it down a little bit more. So we have two remaining decision packages for your consideration. The first is for the attorney fee increase that Judge Gehring spoke about earlier. We're asking to raise the hourly rate from $85 an hour to $100 per hour. This chart shows you where the funds go for attorney fees that we utilize. This shows the increase in case filings in juvenile offender and child native care cases in 2022. And we've pointed out before that on the child in need of care cases, those attorney fees cover multiple parties on one case. Each parent is given an attorney to represent them. And in some cases, there are unknown parents that need to be represented by counsel, and they are also assigned an attorney. And also the child has a guardian ad litem appointed. Our second decision package is in regards to clerk technology. This mainly covers the cost of scanners that we need for clerks to be able to upload documents into e-filing for the Odyssey system. And these are the two remaining decision packages. The attorney fee rate increase of $200,000 and clerk technology at $54,000. We also have the court trustee's office. And as I said before, their positions are self-funded through the fees that they collect through the enforcement of non-4D child support cases. And this provides the statute number that covers the court trustee's office. And a summary of their budget. And like I said, they are a self-funded department, so the county does not provide funding for them. And this covers our total request. So we are available to answer any questions.
Okay, well, thank you, Johnny.
Yes.
Are there any questions for anybody?
Yeah, I was excited. Thank you, Chairman. Excited to see as an opportunity, a 5-year opportunity, and additional specialty court conversations. Sheriff was in here earlier and we talked about the opportunity of a mental health court. Could you give us or give me, I think some of you have been around a little longer than I have, and did the Veterans Court, what does that process look like to stand up a specialty court? And what's the length of time we should be considering?
So a mental health court is far more challenging to set up than the Veterans Treatment Court. For the most part, we have an established VA hospital here in Wichita. So a lot of the services and a lot of the counseling and a lot of the support staff that go into a successful VTC are already here. The main challenge with the mental health court is the lack of community resources to provide the infrastructure for a mental health court. My outlook on that would be significantly changed if we got the regional mental health center that they keep talking about in Topeka. That would provide infrastructure that we don't currently have. But beyond ComCare, you really start getting very, very thin in terms of resources that would support a mental health court. I think it would be a good addition to the court system. It's just that it's going to be very challenging to set up a court like that without community resources to back it up and to help support it.
So we get the regional mental health hospital, if that thing moves forward, what kind of time frame from start to finish to do something like that?
So maybe look at the Veterans Treatment Court as sort of an example. It was about a year and a half from getting the seed money from Senator Moran to getting people in place, looking at what it's going to look like, hiring the staff. And I think we still have how many positions left to hire?
We need to hire the volunteer coordinator position and then bring on the volunteer mentors.
So we've got one more paid position that needs to be filled for the VTC and then some volunteer positions. So I would think that if we had the necessary support structure that would undergird a mental health court, by the time you get from serious discussions on how we're going to set it up, what it's going to look like, to implementation, it would probably be a 2-year process, more or less.
Good to know. Second question, if you don't mind, the role of a CASA, court-appointed special advocate, particularly for the children's cases, is this something that you do see as a big benefit? I know CASA is having a hard time getting volunteers, and it's been really labor of love over there sometimes. Is this something that is a significant difference for these children? Should we, not as a county, but as a community, should we be talking more about the need for more CASAs?
So I've been in a lot of spaces and a lot of places in the district court, but juvenile is just not a rotation that I've ever been in. So I'm way out of my wheelhouse here. I think for the most part, CASAs are helpful to the juvenile process. And I think that they are a resource that our judges and caseworkers down in juvenile rely on heavily. I just don't know enough about where they're currently staffed to know whether we've hit the sweet spot with the number of CASAs that we have, whether we need more, I can't imagine we have too many.
We don't.
If I had to take a guess, my guess would be like all other things, we probably need more than we have.
Sure.
But I do think that they provide a very good asset to the juvenile court.
Thanks, Judge. Appreciate your presentation.
Thank you, Judge. I have 2 quick questions. The on that pie chart says other 18.64%. There's not much explanation there. Is there any way we can get a breakdown of what really constitutes that number?
Can we do that?
I don't need it right now. It just seems like there's a pretty big chunk of money without really any explanation. I'm sure it's important stuff. And I'll bet you the cost expenditure is probably part of that.
Probably so, but we can get that breakdown and email it to you.
That'd be great. And I would agree with Commissioner Beatty. I understand we're woefully needed more CASAs. I just declare that what I know about that is it's one of those things where I think maybe should almost come to us as maybe a item of consideration is to fund that more, because it does make a difference in the outcome of a juvenile case that need to have that advocate in place. My only other question is on slide 12. It talks about they include a personal scanner in advance of the conversion to Odyssey. But the date and time on this is August 23. So we're talking about 2024 budget. Do you need that, you need that in the current budget or in next year's budget?
Probably a little bit of both, but we have some that need to be replaced. We've looked at the ones that the staff that did not have the scanners and the ones that need to be replaced. So a lot of that would come out of next year's budget, but we may have to buy some this year to get them through.
We have a fund tap to help that if that happens. Okay. So all my questions. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Just one comment on their decision package on for the attorney fee increase. Since I've been in county management, we've had this discussion every year. I think the commission ought to plan on, if we fund it to 200,000 this year, it's going to come back again next year. We're going to have to maintain competitiveness in that arena. These private attorneys can pick and choose to be part of that or not. So it's important that we remain somewhat competitive so that they continue to choose to do that. So on Joni's behalf, I know she came in to our meetings with staff with a larger request. We tried to scale it back and maybe phase it in, but expect that to come back again next year, at least an additional 200,000 again next year. And then probably year after, it's going to be continuing. So.
Well, and I also think we'll be asking for more money at the end of the year, which
Yeah.
is typical for district court to need more funds to pay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks again. I know we were on the agenda, it says break, but I think we're ready to press on if it's all right with you all.
Sure.
You all right? We press on? Okay,
Press.
thanks again, Judge, and everybody for being here.
Yeah. I didn't know it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
We get to call it, so that's personal funds. If you would like me to order.
That was kind of.
It's, I mean, you're happier, I'm happier, so
So.
it all works out in.
Okay, Andrew is about a mile out and Bill is on his way.
Oh, okay, all right.
We want to take a break.
We're gonna take 5 minutes. Let's take a couple minutes. So when you're, oh, no, start.
I'm not sad about this.
I am here, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Tanya, good afternoon.
Okay, good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. Tanya Cole, Assistant County Manager. I am here this afternoon to present for the Division of Admin Services, the 2024 budget development. So for the Division of Admin Services, that covers 4 departments: Courthouse Police, who is led by Chief Daryl Haynes; Central Services, that's led by Director Corey Stokes; Fleet Management, led by Director Bo Bergeron; and Facilities Department, that is led by Director Andrew Diltz. My goodness, I don't know what is wrong with me. It's the coffee. Okay, so we will go over, they will go over their decision packages. We have 3. That will be in Fleet, Facilities Management, and then in Central Services. So they will each talk about their decision package. And then Commissioner Dennis, I wanted to mention that Bo Bergeron will talk about Fleet. We talked about that a little bit on Friday, talking about fitting ComCare and their appraiser with Fleet. So we'll talk about that a little bit in his presentation. So to talk about the Division of Workforce Strength, Admin Services, we sit right now at about 78% of workforce strength. You'll see that that's reflective mostly in Courthouse Police and Facilities Department. That kind of brings that percentage down a little bit. In Courthouse Police, that's reflective of our commissioned officers. We tend to see a little bit of turnover in commissioned officers. And then in the Facilities Department, that is reflective in our maintenance staff and then in our custodial staff. And so both department heads will go over that in a little bit more detail. For our strategic goals, goal number 1, we care about safety and security in our buildings and in our fleet. And so we want to make sure that employees in the community are able to conduct business and access public service through those facilities and fleet. So that is our number one goal. And then, of course, our departments are internal service departments. So it's important to us that we provide customer service to the departments that we provide service for, so that they can turn around and provide that great customer service to the community that they serve. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Courthouse Police and Chief Darrell Haynes to go over his budget request.
Page 478.
My apologies.
Okay, our workforce strength is actually looking so much better than it was, because in the last 4 weeks, we've promoted one part-timer to full-time. We've added 2 additional people that were experienced police officers. So this is actually looking very good. We currently have open 1 sergeant position, 2 police officers, 1 part-time police officer, 1 service officer, and then under ARPA, we promoted the part-time officer to full-time, and he's actually shifted to a non-ARPA position. And then we will try to get that filled when we can. Meantime, we're rotating people down here to take care of issues at the Ruffin building. And our strategic plan, we verify that people admitted are employees or have been properly screened to prevent dangerous weapons and items from entering the courthouse. We have a 24-hour presence in the control center at the courthouse and patrolling the grounds. We monitor alarms, system alarms, camera systems. We provide a uniform presence patrolling the courthouse campus and the juvenile courthouse campus to prevent problems and take care of problems as they occur. We provide a presence in the domestic courts and in the courts concerning protection from stalking, protection from abuse, and other dockets as needed. The protection from stalking and protection from abuse is particularly volatile. And for example, the guy that shot up the XL Corporation had been just served with a subpoena to come to our protection from abuse court and chose to go up there and shoot up his employer. We supplied subject matter standardization expertise to county departments on camera systems, on access control systems and identification systems. And our access control system has had a 1993 date. It's got some really stale software that's causing IT some concerns. It's covered in a CIP that's kicking in this year. And we're actually getting a modern system that'll use the same cards, use the same, much of the same equipment, and that CIP will be going this year. Challenges, recruiting, retention. We're the lowest, we're the economy provider for law enforcement for the county. Our officers continue to retire. We've had other officers and supervisors that have left for higher paying positions. The 8% pay increase at the first year has helped. But with inflation, we're still way behind the curve against all the smaller police departments in Sedgwick County. We are counting on the Evergreen study to help us. And I have to say, all of our people are watching very closely to see what happens on the Evergreen study and if it's implemented. Other challenges, we have no training budget, and almost all of the free law enforcement training has disappeared. Even some of the state training that used to be done at KLETC, they're charging a nominal fee, but it's $35 to $50 a class. And that, we're not set up to pay for that. Ammunition, of course, remains very limited availability and expensive, and we have to maintain our certifications and qualifications to limit civil liability. The interfund transfer from 2023 is the CIP for access control. Other than that, we haven't asked for anything. And there's been some minor deductions in implementation. We often throw ourselves on the mercy of budget and finance at the end of the year and see how it goes. And that's a quick summary.
Chief?
Yeah.
A couple questions I've got. First of all, you don't have any decision packages in here, and you reduced your budget about $250,000 from last year. And it kind of concerns me a little bit that we don't have a training budget, and then we're asking you to be commissioned officers, carry weapons and so forth. We don't have anything in the budget to give you enough money for ammunition. I don't know where you qualify or how you qualify each year, but I just read the district attorney's, he puts out a weekly newsletter, and he's showing his people had to qualify on their weapons every year, and he goes, what's out of range 54, and they were showing some pictures.
Well, we do have money. We have traditionally had money enough to buy ammunition for practice and for qualification. The problem is it's just not as available. Sometimes we have to order it a year in advance to get it. And so I just raised that. That's been about a 3 to 5 year problem with getting ammunition, and it's affecting all law enforcement. So we have money for that. As far as the training, we don't have any specified training budget, and everything that we've been getting has been whatever we can get for free. And so I'm raising the issue that we're getting charged for anything that we're getting now. I mean, we're still getting free training. I just got back from free training that I paid my own hotel bill, my own transportation for 4 days of training.
Well, it still concerns me that we're reducing your budget for 2024, and yet you need some things. And last year when you briefed us, you were short on staff, but you're short on staff again. I don't know. They got 8%. When are we going to have a pay plan for courthouse police?
They're included in the Evergreen study, and they should have adjustments in end of 2023 and for 2024.
Well, I hear each year you've got concerns each year, but we're not increasing your budget. So that concerns me a little bit, that if you have concerns, and again, now you're having to cover this building, which we did not have in our 2023 budget, as far as I remember at all. So I want to make sure that we're providing the training for our commissioned officers that are serving us in this county. So I'd like staff to take a harder look at this and see why we're reducing it this much and still have shortages and the things that we're not providing. Thank you.
Can I ask one question, please? On the commissioned officers piece, I know that from what Tanya had mentioned when she first started this, that's kind of where a lot of the issue is on understaffed parts of your group. But in this shows that you have 10 out of the 13.5, but what's the average of the year? If there's high turnover, is that 10 really reflective of what is normal for you and how many staff members you're missing, or is that kind of out of whack? I mean, I agree with Commissioner Dennis that I'd like to look at your department a little bit closer to see how we can help you out more, because every year that I've been here, I feel like I hear the same thing from you, and I want to make sure that we're getting you what you need. But I am interested in that one position, if that's normal at 10, or is that I'm kind of out of the loop right now.
We've actually been short for 2 to 3 years. We're limited in some of the things that we do because we have to maintain the perimeters at the courthouse and the juvenile courthouse. So some of the, those are the things we cannot not do. Some of the things that we're not doing that we ordinarily do is some of the proactive patrols at the outlying buildings such as the historic courthouse, the Reagan building, and around the campus. We are doing some patrols, but not as many as we used to do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. I have just a couple quick questions. So do you have an overtime report? I mean, in terms of the short staff, I'm sure that would impact overtime situation. Can we talk about where are you with that? Because I don't see that anywhere in your report.
We have had many of our officers working overtime to fill what positions we can, but there's only so much overtime people can work. We had one supervisor that left for a higher paying job, and she was filling in a lot of overtime positions. And she was doing a lot of extra staffing on second shift and other shifts. So we get volunteers to work the overtime when we can. And if it's like anything else, if they've had something where they're not going to get paid overtime when they're working because the way the shifts are, like they've missed a day during the week and then they're going to be working straight time. We don't get a lot of volunteers for overtime out of them, but they have stepped up pretty well. We also deal with FMLA. We've got more than a couple of cases of FMLA, and one guy is going to be off with his wife for quite some time. And so that's a second shift position that we have to work on filling, and it's tough to fill.
I guess I hear a lot of concern amongst commissioners. I'd like to see some type of overtime report on courthouse police that might be helpful to see where we're at. Do you guys do video monitoring of Reagan Historic Courthouse, election office?
Yes.
Election warehouse?
Yes, we do, but like, for example, we can't watch everything. Now, I envision some of the new cameras that we're adding has some AI capacity of saying, alerting you to say, look at this camera because there's motion in the election warehouse at night, and there shouldn't be motion in the election warehouse at night. That's coming. That's not here yet. We do have an alarm system in there, and if the alarm gets triggered, we get called, and that prompts us to take a look and see what's going on in there while officers are responding.
And just to be clear, to clarify, we do pay for all the ammo that you guys use.
Oh, yes.
Okay, thank you. Want to clarify that. And then my only other question was I'm just curious. I'm looking at manager for a minute. We have a law enforcement training center. Why can we not provide some type of recurrent, maybe 40 hours a year to get your commissions up? Can we not? It seems like we should have interdepartmental in-kind accounting opportunities that would provide the opportunities for courthouse police. So it seems like that ought to be easily solvable.
Couple of things. First of all, the commissioner, let me address one at a time. And I know Tanya wants to talk about an overall, a comprehensive analysis on this, on the courthouse police, but before she goes there, on page 480 of your budget books is an explanation of the reduction of their budget. It has to do with a reduction in CIP projects for 2024. And there were some radio additions too. That's the budget cut that you're referencing, Commissioner Dennis. Second thing is, to your point, Commissioner Howell, between sheriff and LETC and the county co-runs a range with the city, historically always have. trying to, where courthouse police fits into that. I agree with you. There ought to be some solution there and some synergy. Now, of Daryl's positions, how many commission do you have, Daryl, that require the 40 hours of training and carry a sidearm? He's got some staff that do, some that don't.
13.55, 13.55.
13 and a half people.
Okay. So his commissioned, and remember the county historically had a courthouse security function. When Daryl came to the county, and this is years ago now, we commissioned a police department, which changes the rules slightly. Now you have state certifications, you have firearms qualifications, and you have the 40 hours of in-service. So I think I want Tanya to talk about is a comprehensive study that she's going to do to look at some of what you've all brought up already, plus overtime, plus other options and functions that the county could do, incorporate to provide this function, and how to help this department. The other thing I want to mention before Tanya talks is the concept, and we've had a lot of staff meeting about cameras and security. The county is running so much more robust security system than we did even 5 years ago. And Daryl has taken on a brunt of that. So we've talked about between sheriff cameras and detention facility cameras, can't we do something more holistic? And it's a challenge. And Mike was at the table, Elpers was at the table. It's a challenge to talk about a comprehensive model when we have so much diversity of operation. We'll continue to look at that, but I think the decision from staff, and this is a couple months ago, was this status quo for now because there's so many moving pieces. So there's a lot that we're looking at here, and I want Tanya to talk about the comprehensive plan that she's asked to do. She came to me a couple months ago and wanted to do a study because this is it comes up every year. So we wanted to be proactive. So you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. Thank you for clarifying on that, the difference in the request. I knew that some of that was related to CIP, and I think some of it might be related to a JAG grant as well. So I appreciate that clarification on the difference in that budget. The other piece that the manager alluded to is what I'm trying to do is basically kind of a staffing study of courthouse police. And Daryl has talked to me about his constant turnover with commissioned officers. And so what I'm trying to do is basically kind of take a look at best practices of security in courthouses. So we're looking at the main courthouse, and then we're looking at the juvenile courthouse, and what best practice looks like for security in both of those courthouses. And does it have to be commissioned officers, or does it have to be service officers? And what does that look like? What does staffing look like for what they're trying to do at the courthouses, and also the ancillary work that they're trying to do otherwise, as far as, security cameras and so forth. And so we're taking a look at that, because if you look at Daryl's staffing, he has a lot more commissioned officers than he does service officers. And does that make sense? Because when you have commissioned officers, of course, you have the training that comes with that and all of that, and you have a higher rate of pay. And so I just wanted to do a kind of comprehensive study of what that staffing report would look like, understanding everything holistically before we move forward. Because as we kind of look at this over the last 2 years, we kind of keep running into the constant turnover and overtime, and having a hard time trying to fill the commissioned officers, along with Daryl's frustration with him looking at, in comparison to courthouse police and other police departments and the rate of pay. So I just want to take that holistic look of what is best practice out there for security of courthouse and what we're asking courthouse police to do. Okay.
And we do have 26 commission positions. By the time you add in supervisors and so forth.
Thanks, Joe.
Last year, we were getting vests. Do we have vests for everyone, both the commission officers and the service officers?
We got vests specifically allocated about 3 years ago now. We've had some turnover, and we have bought a couple of vests, and we have some others that are using vests that weren't necessarily originally fitted for them.
But both that classification, all officers have vests.
I'm sorry.
For both classifications of officers, both those that are armed, and
Yes.
those that are unarmed, they have vests. Okay. Good, thank you.
Thanks again, Chief.
Okay, next up is Central Services. Corey Stokes will be up to speak on this. And then he also has a decision package related to elections, okay?
Good afternoon, Corey Stokes, Central Services. So our workforce is looking pretty good. We had some turnover in the public services call center. But overall, we're at about 93% manned. For the call centers, our strategic plan is similar to as it's been. Want to ensure that we are managing the needs of our stakeholders and we're supporting the needs of the public as well. We're also trying to ensure that the call center agents are trained in order to handle calls both efficiently and effectively. Within the print shop and mailroom, the plan is and the goal is to ensure that we are meeting the needs of each of the departments. We want to coordinate with the departments during the order process to make sure we're meeting their needs as they see it, as opposed to having multiple redos in the process of printing. We're also trying to increase the efficiency of the print shop. Within records management, our strategic goal is to assess the opportunities for larger storage space on site. This way we can reduce our reliance on off-site storage. We also want to keep records management top of mind for the county in terms of record storage and records retention. Some of the challenges and opportunities that we're facing. This first one here, I believe, is an opportunity. I want to continue to develop cross-training within Central Services. We're seeing a high number of bilingual calls, and we're outsourcing our translation services. I'd like to see some of that stay in-house or hire more bilingual individuals so that they can take those calls. One of the challenges that we've had in 2022, we had a higher turnover rate than I would like. But I do see that as also as a potential opportunity to get the right people in to handle the right type of jobs. The next two bullets kind of go hand in hand. I do see over the next 3 to 5 years, there being some type of training for Central Services. It's not just a call center. There are programs and workflows involved in that the call agents have to learn in order to do the job properly. So I think we're doing pretty well. But I do believe there's more that we can be doing there. In addition to that, I also want to develop the quality assurance program to make sure that the call agents are handling those calls effectively. So as you can see here, we are asking for a total decrease of about 4% in our budget, totaling 2.6 million. And we do have one decision package that we are submitting, requesting $387,985 to support the 2024 presidential election. With that, just to give a little bit of information on what we're anticipating in that election. The elections office is looking at 3 elections over the course of 2024. The presidential preference, the general election, as well as the primary. Not in that order.
Thanks for clarifying.
So within this budget, this decision package, we're looking at an increase in the postage rates coming in July. So the rates are going to increase from about 57 cents that we're paying now to 63 cents. If you do the math there, you'll see that doesn't add up fully, but it is a difference of first class mail and postcards. Some of that will be less, some of that will be more. So this is an average. And with that, I'm available for questions.
Well, just a clarification, as Commissioner Dennis, so is this your budget or the election budget?
So this is Central Services budget. Central Services covers the postage for the elections. We do not cover the printings. We don't cover the.
She's asking for money also for mailings and so forth. So when we divide it up into the numerous budgets, then we lose track of exactly what it costs us to do an election. Just like a few years ago when I first got here, IT was in everybody's budget. Now we've got it all in one. So we know what the cost is of that. When we divide this up between numerous budgets, we don't have a grasp of what it actually costs us to run an election. Because if somebody said, well, what did it cost me per person to run an election? Well, I'd have to go, well, how many budgets are in? And I'd be dividing this up. I don't believe that it ought to be in different budgets. It ought to be in the election commissioner's budget.
So Commissioner, if I can address that. So postage is all run through this department. It is their contract. If we were to put it in a different department, these guys would not have access to that. We'd have to have a different contract. It would be a logistical nightmare to have it in a separate budget. I think if we know that that is an ongoing request, we can certainly start putting together some reports because we also have staff spread across the organization, IT staff who provide support for elections. So I think we can put together a comprehensive picture for you for each election. I just don't know that it is feasible. I understand your concern, but I just don't know that it's feasible with the way our entire system is set up to put that in one spot.
I don't have a problem with you putting it in different budgets if we know what the total cost of the election is. Right now, I can't tell you the total cost. You make a good point that it's in other budgets too for IT and so forth. So somehow we need a comprehensive view so that when the public says, what did it cost me if we cast 180,000 votes this year? What did it cost per vote? And I come back and I don't know.
Well, and that's actually, we have a really neat dashboard that's going to be spun up before too long. So I'm willing to bet that we can work with our IT friends to get you something pretty cool to answer that question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Just on the presidential early vote supposed to happen in March. Isn't the state providing revenue to the county to fund that particular election?
After we spend it, we'll get reimbursed, but we have to spend the money first.
Okay, so we should show an expenditure, but we should also show revenue to
Yes.
offset that.
Yes,
Is there revenue in here somewhere?
not yet because it hasn't been approved by the commission yet.
Okay. All right. On the call center, what areas of expertise do they answer questions on? I mean, they're not just directing calls, they're also answering questions specifically for the county. I know for the election office at least, but what other areas of the county are they answering questions for?
So that would be the healthcare, health department, ComCare, treasurer's office, the tag office, and the clerk's office.
So likewise on those tag, treasurer,
And the appraiser's
calls,
office.
is there inter-department billing that takes care of, so the money is in the right spot? We show that as revenue and.
Very sore topic to some, but yes.
I'm sure it is.
Does happen.
Yeah,
We can show you that if you would like that detail.
but here it just shows it as expenditure, but there's revenue to cover this.
As well as the appraiser's office.
Okay. All right, I think that's all my only question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Calling you budget director.
Yes. Bo Bergeron, Fleet Management. Everybody's favorite topic.
All right.
Workforce wise, we're doing pretty good. We have one open position in the heavy shop, which we've always had 1 to 2 positions open there, so we're doing pretty good there. Our strategic plan, we provide the right vehicles and equipment together with timely maintenance and repairs. And all county services directly benefit from fleet and the citizens indirectly. Fleet availability, exceeds expectations in customer service and offer timely and efficient or effective support to fully satisfy customers' requests and inquiries. And fleet services delivered using mostly fleet staff. Oops, forgot to do that. Okay. Challenges and opportunities. Increased technology in vehicles, looking at consideration for EV vehicles, electric vehicles. Supply chain issues and rising costs, keeping technicians trained and up to date with increased technology, and retaining qualified technicians in an in-demand industry. And then some consideration of leasing fleet vehicles. ComCare has requested 82 vehicles, and the appraiser's office has requested 6 vehicles. If we lease these, we'd have to have a maintenance contract. We do not have the staff to add almost 100 vehicles. I got my numbers from Enterprise, and leasing on a 3-year contract within them selling them is around $485,000 a year. And if we purchased outright, that'd be about 2.2 million.
So what's the trade-off between those two? How many years until we get 2.2 million if we're leasing them?
So it's an interesting plan. What they do is we lease for 3 years, and at the end of that 3 years, they sell them for what we would still owe as if we were to buy them. That money goes back into the pot for the next batch. The numbers look great on paper. I'm not really sure in practice yet, because everybody that's I've been recommended to, none of them have had their cars delivered yet.
Yeah.
So we don't have really any tangible data on it.
But you give us 2 options here, and I don't know what the total cost of the lease versus purchase. I don't know what the trade-off is.
So the lease at that 485,000, that's for all 88 vehicles per year. But if we had to buy outright, it'd be 2.2. So if we only leased for 3 and then paid for them and kept them, it would still equal out about that 2.2. But by trading them back in, paying or selling them and then rolling it back over, it's a decrease as long as the vehicles are still in good shape. And Lindsay
Somehow
has
we need
more
a spreadsheet that lays that out here.
Yeah.
I can't understand it right now.
So one of the things that we'll work with Bo to do is basically say, okay, what would we spend if we outlaid 2.2 million and then spent X many dollars per vehicle on preventive maintenance per year? What would that look like over a 3 to 5 year term, or however long we would expect to keep that vehicle? Neither one of these, I think, would probably be used in rough situations like our public works vehicles. So we could look at that, and then we could also look at what is this deal that Enterprise is proposing? What do we get for that value? And we can do a cost comparison like that, and we can bring that back to you all.
And for possibility of lease, it would only be for
cars that we stick a door sticker on. Anything that requires extensive setup, hard usage, it wouldn't be practical. Our numbers. Total of 12,040,762. Now for the fun part. So one decision package. Addition for a fleet mechanic primarily for the ambulance fleet. We currently have 2 techs that work primarily on ambulances who work a large amount of overtime, and our spare numbers are still low. Some of that is because it takes us 2 years right now to get a new truck. Some of it's the stuff we have is so old that it's down all the time. We have over the last, my notes go, over the last year and a half, since January of last year, we've had 23,000 hours of downtime on ambulances. That does not include if they were at a vendor, like we have one at the body shop for 6 months. That doesn't include that. This is only stuff that we've had open work orders for. So anything we've opened a work order on, we've had 23,000 hours of downtime, which is about, was that like 20 something days a truck average. Our spare status, they want ideally 10, 8, but right now there's 2 medics that are taken down, so we have 10. 2 trucks come in for service, that's 8. One's at the body shop, 7. One's getting an engine, 6. And then when they bring 2, you know, it just progresses that way. And then we end up with, EMS gave me some numbers. 3rd of this month, we had 0 spares, and at a high, we had 3 spares. So we're working a lot to try to keep them up, and it's hard to do with 2 people. They've had 1990, 18 ambulances, 1 mechanic, 2001, 20 ambulances, a full-time mechanic and a floating mechanic. 2008, 23 mechanic or 23 ambulances, 2 mechanics. Now 30 ambulances, still 2 mechanics. So we've increased the amount of ambulances, have not increased the service on them.
You know how many ambulances we have that are on order that we have not received total?
Yes. We have 5 and 2 remounts from last year. We just got the remaining of 7 new trucks that we ordered in 21.
And as of right now, we're still in that 0 to 3 status.
Because once we get those trucks, we still have to spend a month to set up the rest of the stuff.
Okay, so once that's done, then are we gonna have some relief on this?
Hopefully, but depends on, so the trucks we have that we're replacing right now with the 7 that came in have 330,000 miles on them, which are infrequently, and all the other trucks are then getting miles put on them as we go. If we had everything show up at once, we'd be pretty good.
You have to pull equipment out of the old ambulances to
Yes.
bring the new ones online?
Yes, so the radios have to come out, the cradle point router system has to come out, the power load system has to come out.
I guess I've asked this before. Seems like if we're a little short on vehicles, and maybe the other idea is to not take some things offline so quickly and get these things on board without debilitating the old ambulance or whatever. Is there a way to?
I don't think we're going to have a choice but to do that in the future with supply chains the way they are and the orders going so long. We're going to be running things longer. And, on certain kinds of fleet vehicles, that doesn't create heartache for me, but in ambulances, it kind of does. So, I mean, but I don't know that we'll have a choice. Bo has already said what.
We might need to buy another radio, because you can't take this one radio out of this ambulance to put. You need to have another radio or whatever it's going to be. And
so the radios are $6,000, the power load's $30,000. That stuff, and they don't have.
I'll just say not having ambulances is not, when you say zero spares, that's alarming to me. We can't be there.
Yeah.
That's not okay.
And the other part of this is, since they're wanting to add more ambulances, we're going to continuously increase the amount of ambulances in the fleet without adding any mechanics. So we're going to have even more trouble trying to keep up with what's going on. The amount of use they have, they're infrequently for their regular services. So anytime they come down for service, then 2 come out, 2 go in. If something happens, 1 goes out, 1 goes in. And it's a constant rotating battle of trying to keep them going.
The one decision package that you have, does that come out of the fleet costs from EMS or?
No, it'll be fleet, right?
So the position cost would be just, we would ask Bo to build it into his fleet charges across the organization. It would be an overhead cost. And so that would be paid by all departments across the board on their fleet charges, because I assume this won't just be only an ambulance.
No, their primary goal is ambulances, but they will do other stuff as needed.
We would bill the rest of the departments.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee, do you want to go?
Okay. Any other questions? I don't see any. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good afternoon, Andrew Dilts Facilities. Our staffing table, right now, kind of our hot spots right now are in maintenance and our custodial. Right now, we're 69% is staffed in maintenance and we're 47% staffed at custodial. Our custodial in-house primarily takes care of juvenile detention. We have 3 strategic goals. Project management is to organize and facilitate project management for approved capital projects to ensure timely, cost-efficient completion with high-quality standards. Our strategic goal for maintenance is to proactively and responsibly protect and preserve the value of county infrastructure. And our third goal is for customer service to identify employee and client accommodation enhancement opportunities to project the county values of trust, integrity, collaboration, passion, and innovation. On our 5-year horizon, these are very similar to what we had last year. We're still dealing with rising costs and construction materials and contract labor. We also have equipment obsolescence. It's difficult to service due to lack of parts, and we continue to have the EPA changing standards, making it more difficult to buy refrigerant and things of that nature. We have space planning, where we're continuing to expand our building footprint, resulting in increased maintenance and operating costs. We also have aging buildings and a lack of contractor expertise and trying to maintain some of those buildings outside of the scope that we can do in-house. We have extreme weather events, which can add to our utility cost and contractor availability. And then our staffing levels, which we're continuing to deal with wage competition with the private sector. Regarding our budget, we have an overall decrease, mostly due to the interfund transfers to CIP projects. The personnel, contractuals, and commodities. Personnel and contractuals have increased, commodities have a slight decrease. We do have one decision package that is for a maintenance vehicle. We continue to absorb buildings. I think over the last 2 or 3 years, we've come into 3 buildings. And we've absorbed that with the vehicles that we have and the staff that we have. However, we do have LETC was the last one that we absorbed this year. And with this additional vehicle, we'll be able to have some of our staff respond to some of those buildings in a more timely manner. That vehicle we estimate at $40,000. And I will stand for any questions.
Questions? Go ahead.
Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate it. I don't know if this question is so much in what your budget is, but what your workload is. Okay. This morning, Commissioner Meitzner and I were out at WSU, and I saw Dr. Muma, and he was very pleased that they're getting $190 million. So it looks like a regional biomedical facility. That's what I'm trying to come up with. We got too many things we're doing. The biomedical facility looks like it's a reality, but one of the things that he talked about was co-locating health department there along with our CommCare crisis. So that more workload for you to figure out how to make that happen in the future. So I don't know if all your budget can cover everything that we're going to tell you what we need done, but
I think so. A lot of that's going to come down to a CIP, and we can request funds through the CIP amendments and things of that nature. So I think we can handle what we have on the horizon regarding that.
Good, thank you.
Any other questions? Thanks, Andrew. Thanks for all the work you do.
Okay, commissioners, coming back in for the division summary. So with courthouse police, central services, fleet manager, or excuse me, fleet management and facilities, our request is just under 25 million with just a slight reduction there of under 3%. And then our division summary for those three decision packages is just under 500,000. And then one FTE. And then happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Any questions for Tanya? I don't see any.
Okay, thank you for your time this afternoon.
Commissioners, we have one presentation left. Will be on page 28 for the county manager's office.
Does this flow one right after another?
Yeah. Sure. I think, yeah.
Robin, can you bring up the, if it's just gonna flow one right after another? There we go. Okay. But we can speed through this. County manager's workforce structure looks good. We had one comms position leave that we will fill. And we have not filled a DEI position yet. That is a position whose funding we use to, as we went over last week, we used to fund the consultant and the fellow. Quickly on strategic plans, and these are strategic goals that are related to the larger county strategic plan. Alternative service and delivery. The staff spends a lot of time discussing this on ways to consolidate, privatize, create efficiencies between departments or sections or between governments. Sometimes we have a lot of discussions going on with the city of Wichita on ways to do business better by sharing resource. So that is a priority in the manager's office. Strategic goal number 2 is one that we covered in a workshop last week, our efforts and diversity and inclusion and all policies that pertain to that. Goal 3 is, I should keep this moving. Goal 3 is our workforce and talent maintenance. The commission has helped considerably in the last 2 years as we continue to come forward with compensation plans that are competitive. We're continuing that theme again this year through budget. And hope that the commission considers the compensation plans that we're pushing forward so we can remain competitive. And then, back. Number 4 is what we work on every week when we work with you all to try to hear what you say, to get your visions and goals done. Our communications department tries to support each one of you. Our staff, finance, and all other departments continue to try to support you. That's a big part of the role of the county manager's office. Challenges and opportunities. The first is to, and we talk about this every year, staff, environment, safety, and facility. So we are trying to implement methods to sustain workforce. And I think Sheena has gone above and beyond on creating multiple compensation plans. Bo has gone above and beyond on workplace environment, and not Bo, Andrew. I'm glad he's gone. Andrew's worked hard on facility safety and cleanliness and all the kinds of things that make it a nice place to come in and work. And then we try to promote the growth of our employees through a lot of strategies, through evaluation, through compensation, through training and coaching to make the county a good place to work. We continue to collaborate with, and now maybe more than ever, other local, regional, and state partners with WSU, with all of our local universities to work through this mental health challenge that we have all been faced. That takes up a lot of staff time, a lot of manager staff time and department head staff time. Another challenge is to continue exploration of answers and alternative to solution to ongoing space needs, which we have been talking about my entire time in county management, since most of you have been on the bench, and Commissioner Howell being the longest served. We've been talking about this all these years. We're getting very close. And that is a lot of time of Tanya's time and a lot of time of Andrew's time. In addition to an election office and other kinds of facilities that we're looking at. And then we always try to provide a diverse work environment so that all employees feel welcome, that we can recruit across the board and bring people in that want to work for Sedgwick County. The other that's not on this list, but we spend a lot of time on policy development as well. We're trying to make the county as professional of an organization as we can make it. That requires consistency and policy to move forward, so that not only do our citizens know what to expect, but our employees know what to expect as well from their work. This is the budget. We've done some flipping of contractual and commodities. That's why you'll see a decrease in one and an increase in the other. We are working through, it's a little bit complicated when we decided to, instead of fill a DEI position, go with a consultant and a fellow. So those numbers adjust the budget. Once the DEI consultant is completed, we will come back to commission. We'll talk about a strategy moving forward on DEI. And we would hope that that would be done by end of year, fourth quarter of the year. We'll tag team strategic communications, but I'm going to have Nicole get up and start it, and then we'll all chime in.
Afternoon, Commissioners. Nicole Gibbs of the Strategic Communications Department. As communicators, many believe that our job is to formulate and send messages to our community in ways that they can understand. While that truly is our job, it's also our job to be explorers of information about Sedgwick County internally and externally. We pride ourselves in continuing to gain insight on our services, build relationships with employees and the community we serve, and be willing to listen and consider the feedback we receive. Strategic communication works to continually research new opportunities, plan for what we know and what could be in the future, implement concise and clear information and tactics, and evaluate our strategies. We do this through our strategic goals. The first one is to increase public trust through greater access and transparency, multiple communication platforms, and methods of community engagement. Number two, improving public perception of the positive impact of Sedgwick County. And number three, strengthen internal communications among divisions and departments. Nobody can deny that there are always challenges, but in comms, we try to view everything as opportunities. Our opportunities on the horizon are mental health. As we continue to find solutions in our community, we want to really take the chance to chase after the stigma and transition what that looks like, and also make folks aware of the resources that are available to them. We want to continue building public trust with easy access in multiple languages. This was something that we really dove into in COVID-19 and had a lot of great feedback. And I believe this is a next step that we need to continue going with our communications. We are looking to continue positive, good news social media and exploring expanding reach. We try to promote everyone in Sedgwick County, but whether it's a person, a department, or a activity, event, any of those kinds of things. We want to share the good news and the happenings that are happening in our community. We want to be recruitment focused with HR, and we want to do this through data-driven advertising. How we can do this is by taking opportunities to engage in Google Ads and be thoughtful of the data that we're getting back through our advertising, and make sure that we're spending our monies where people are actually finding the information. We want to go through and formalize our brand standards in conjunction with a branding refresh, logo trademark, and website update. You'll hear a little bit more about a website update here in a little bit, but we feel it's important that now's the time to formally trademark the Sedgwick County logo. We've been using it for many years, and so it is ours, but if we can put it in writing, then we can continue to protect the brand and the integrity of our organization and the way we use our marketing materials. We would also like to look into a community-wide scientific survey for feedback. This also offers opportunities for transparency and gives the community a great chance to tell us what's going on, what they want to hear from us. And it helps us be more data-driven in our decisions, not just in communications, but in other departments that we engage. And lastly, I would like to establish a media training program. We do currently train folks on how to talk to the media, what to say, not what to say, but how to say and help framing the message. But we would actually like to make it into a formalized program. And so that would continue, that could be a class, that could be a handbook, something that will be standardized across the county, and also including a style guide. And that style guide is to guide how we are writing and what we're saying and formulating words. So an example is how we write BOCC and condensed. So for our budget this year, we have minimal change. We have a reduction in personnel and a reduction in commodities, but we do have an increase in contractuals for a 1.7 decrease overall. And for today, we come with one decision package for a website redesign process. An ask of $60,000 was made before in 2020 and was approved. However, due to COVID-19 pandemic and department turnover, there was no capacity to take this on. The website is one of the county's largest communication tools where consumers find information about services and programs. In 2022 alone, the website had over 9.2 million page views. The traffic on our website grows more each year, especially as departments move towards efficiencies through digital services and more accessibility 24/7. The current design has been in place since 2013, and best practices for marketing indicate an organization should review and refresh their website regularly, approximately every 3 to 5 years. Based on the size, scope, and desired timeline, communications would like to consider to use an outside vendor in conjunction with IT. I want to be very clear with this, that this would be a partnership with IT and they would have a say in everything that we do together. Our part of this is to help lighten the load and to see if there's ways that we can be more efficient with our website currently. Also, with this refresh, we will be evaluating the content on our current site and working on a process to declutter and better organize information for easy public access. Here is our decision package request of $100,000 for the county website redesign. We do not have any reductions or revenue packages. That will answer any questions.
Oh, sorry about that. On the website,
Yes,
will that be publicly an RFP?
Yes.
the desire is to do an RFP, yes.
On the website, would it be possible to get some sort of framework of what it is that you would want to see different on the website with something like this from a functional standpoint or content or?
Sure. One of my favorite stats that I put into my request, for example, currently the website sits at 6,709 pages that are accessible to the public. 1,300 pages of these are content, and over 4,500 of that 6,700 has not been updated since 2020. So the whole purpose of this is to really dive into the information that's on our website, clean it up and make it a little more accessible, a lot more accessible to our constituents, and to also put out our best foot forward. Your website's your number one place that people are going to go to learn about you. You drive all your other tactics to your website for information. And so I want us to put our best foot forward with a clean, sleek website that's easy to search and easy to find information for our constituents.
It's an interesting discussion. We were talking about this morning, and we actually want to, it's so important that what you do put forward has to be clean and efficient, or people will give up on it. That's our main complaint with our current website. It's just clunky. So we want to clean that up. And I don't know exactly how it looks yet. I think that's why if this gets approved, then I'm not sure it's going to make the recommended budget or not, but we would want to go out to experts and then come back to the commission with ideas and strategies and have you guys be involved in that to some degree. So
I also want to throw out there, our current website is housed internally, and our IT team, especially our webmaster, does a great job at giving us what we need when we ask for it. She is very buried in all the tasks that she has, but she is wonderful. And the hopes of moving forward with this would not only relieve some stressors off of her plate, but would allow her to be more innovative with our internal website and communications and external as well.
Can I ask a question about the website? Does that 100,000 include any translation services? Because, I mean, is any of that going to be in multiple language or is it just going to be in English?
That's an excellent question. My hopes is that whatever solution we go with has translation involved in it. So there's not specifically, in my opinion, funds for actual translation, but to me, it should be a part of the solution.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going.
But I approached you a couple of weeks ago and also talked with Lindsay about, I wanted to know what your advertising budget was. And a lot of it was simply because I noticed that we do spend a lot of money on COVID vaccine advertising and which I'm in favor of. I'm not saying I'm not in favor of those things. I'm just saying that one of the complaints we hear about the mental health and substance abuse conversation is that this the lack of awareness of where do I go, what do we do, and I wanted to know if it had ever been considered to have an actual strategic advertising plan so people could be aware of what the resources are in our community and what the path to entry is. So was there ever a follow-up from any of those conversations as to what that looks like or when that timing could?
You want to go?
So Commissioner, you had sent us a follow-up note on that. We have it on our radar. It's something that we can look at with ARPA funds. I think we talked about at the time that there's no reason that we can't rely on those funds specifically related to the substance abuse and mental health coalition type initiatives. I think in terms of a larger strategy, that's a prime conversation for next year's budget process when we're, if that's the focus, when we're going into a general fund discussion.
Yeah.
If that is something that you all would like to accelerate into the 2024 budget conversation, we certainly can, but I don't see, I honestly don't see a lot of reason to go to a general fund when we know that ARPA is there and there's available.
And
funds.
that was kind of my point in the timing of the question, but we all know that many people aren't sure of what the path of entry is for a lot of these services that we provide. And some of these services we heard from ComCare this last week was we do have good services we are providing and many people just simply aren't aware. And a really simple advertising campaign to direct people of what that entry looks like, I think would be helpful. I think it's been helpful in the COVID conversation. And I think we could also duplicate that for mental health and substance abuse. So something I think we should consider.
Yes, definitely, Commissioner. I do want to point out that we do work closely with departments, including ComCare, and there are times that situations come up that they want to do additional advertising. And so not just in ComCare, but any of our department that wants to do that, we're happy to have those discussions and put together campaigns and strategies for them. And most times they find funds for us to do advertising if it can't be covered in communication. So there are options out there for sure. And there are opportunities that we're willing and happy to move forward with.
And Commissioner, one thing that we might also consider is you had a robust conversation on Friday morning with an update from Joan and a lot of discussion about who all the various players are. So that may be the group that convenes to talk about what we can do, and maybe we can be the channel for that funding to help folks get the access and figure out where that front door is.
Very good. Thank you.
I would to follow up I'm going back in my history here at the commission. Seems like every of course COVID and the CARES money, seems like all of our campaigns, I don't know if I can say all of them, but many of them were funded by designated sources. Even the recent, one pill can kill thing with Sheriff Easter was opioid. So I don't recall that we've really had a robust quote marketing that's not been kind of more issue related. But I like kind of the thought of thinking, well, how do we promote? And so it is and especially with the ComCare, what you just said, maybe we find our focus and our, what's could be a general budget consideration versus all these that these funds that we keep getting, opioid, ARPA, COVID, whatever they are, grants. So anyway, so it's a great conversation and topic that you brought up. So you got anything to add?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it. In the 6 years I've been here, we've had a very, very good communications department. But actually in the last 8-10 months, it's kind of coalesced somehow. And it's the best I've seen since I've been here in 6 years. So I just want to pass on.
Start the recorder on this. Okay. Make sure you got this popular.
Can you repeat that one more time into the microphone? One more time.
Your button was off. So that's too bad.
The group that you have now working in communications is the best that I've seen since I've been here in 6 years.
We have a very talented team and a team that cares. They all want to be involved. They're all excited to learn and make relationships with the people in the county. There's a new story that we uncover every day, and we all are brought alive by hearing these stories. And so that's what our goal is to share the good news and share the information that the county has for the community.
Yeah, I'd like to reinforce that. Frankly, I mean, since we're running ahead of schedule, I've been in the advertising world a lot just because of what I used to do. And I've had numerous people, and I've told Robin this in particular, that are starting to see the difference in the consistency in just things like fonts and color schemes, and that stuff matters to people, how they're receiving messaging. So I pulled Robin aside a couple of weeks ago and said, hey, I just want you to know, I just had someone call me this morning and say, hey, Sedgwick County's marketing and communications is actually really dialed in right now. And they notice, people notice these things. So congrats, you're doing a good job.
Yes, thank you, sir. Like I said, our team is very good. We are lean, but we are very mean. So there's not really much you can throw at us that we can't do or are willing to try and do.
This is the last couple of slides, Commissioners, on the division summary. We're running flat budget. And if you could flip one more before you leave up there, Nicole. This is just the summary, the only decision packages, county website. We'll do what we can on the recommended budget and consider that strongly. And then to Lindsay's point, if we can use ARPA funds more strategically on some marketing issues, we'll get after that too. I think that was it, right? Yeah, any questions?
And Commissioner Lopez, do you have anything?
No, I don't think I have anything to add. I would reiterate what my colleagues have said and just congratulate our comms team. I've been hearing, I don't want to just jump on here, but I too have heard from multiple people just how good the county looks right now from a media standpoint. So I hope you realize that it's being noticed. We all see it and we appreciate you very much. Thank you.
Okay. So with that, I expect that Commissioner Dennis and Beatty and Lopez will get a lot more publicity and warm feelings from communication.
No.
Okay.
You don't need to start on that.
We love everybody. We all. Okay. All right. So thank you for the day. My apologies for missing the early part, but it's another good day. Thank you. This budget process is going nicely from my perspective. 9 o'clock tomorrow, same channel, same time. Okay. We'll see everybody tomorrow.